Hello, everyone. I'm just going to press record here. How's everyone doing? Good? Awesome. This is the one before the cocktail, so this is going to be good. I promise. My name is Christle. I'm a designer for BKM Officeworks San Diego, and I've been a designer for about 9 years now in this industry. I do photography as a side hustle. So I'm also the same person who won the award, first place Best Movie last year for CET. And Kelsey emailed me after that asking me if I could teach for this year's CET Experience. And I thought that I'm really grateful and honored, truly, because a conference like this, really, we're here to build each other up. And today, you're my friends and my coworkers, and for once, not my competitors. Just want to make it clear. So just a show of hands, how many of you have used Movie Studio Extension? Okay, all right. Well, this is going to be a good class. I'll tell you why. I'm not just going to teach you the one-on-one basics about this tool, but also how to be efficient with it. So my goal in the end of the day is that you walk out here more confident and not hesitant, right? And for me as a designer, I'm usually very hungry for inspiration. So I want to start with an inspirational video. And before I start this video, I want you to just pay attention with how the camera pans through the space and how notice the speed of the camera when it pans through the space, what it's highlighting. Notice the transition from each scene to the next scene. Notice the introduction and how it ends, and the music, in the background especially. So here we go. All right, I'm going to pause it right there. Close your eyes, guys. So what makes it a good fly-through? And this is what I find makes it really good. When the camera pans through the space, it's nice and slow. Notice the speed. It's slow enough that your eye actually catches more details. The other thing also is that I've been to the space before. It's actually a brand new restaurant in San Diego. So if any of you have not been in San Diego and want to visit San Diego, go to Little Italy, which is in downtown, and you can't miss this restaurant. It's brand new. It's very popular, and honestly, I think that most people go there for the Instagram photos. They highlighted the very main area of the space, but not everywhere. And I think that's very intentional because if you think about it, like a commercial, they only show just enough to get you like excited, wanting to check out the space. And really, with the music, also, it's not something very overpowering or distracting. And so this is basically the other spaces that are equally just as beautiful. So you have, this is actually the back of where they have all the entrance, the seating, the booth seating. This is the back where it's the open kitchen. They have a large island where they prep the food before they start serving. They have a bathroom from an era. There's golden swan faucets, golden sinks. One time I was waiting for a restroom for like more than 10 minutes, and I'm like, what is going on? And I noticed this pictures on Instagram and Yelp because everyone wants to take a selfie in this restroom. True story, I'm not exaggerating. So notice how they have other areas in this restaurant that are equally beautiful, but they are not, shown in that video. So let's talk about our goals. So I usually have these goals, and you can borrow them too. This is usually the goals I have when I work through fly through. So first of all, goals for our clients is to inspire them with our designs, create excitement, and to leave them dreaming of their future space. For ourselves, it would be to provide excellent work in the most efficient way possible. Time can be a beast, but we can control what we have. Sweet Brown says it best. Ain't nobody got time for that. So tell me honestly, if you can feel my pain. So fly-throughs are 5% of what I do as a designer. 5%. I usually get these requests a day before. I get lucky if it's a few days before it's due. And there are times I have the same day that it's due. And I'm, anyone here can relate to this pain? Anyone? Yeah? Okay, thank you. And of course, the end goal is to win the bid. I'm not sure if anyone else uses fly-through besides for a bid. I don't know. I'd like to know. So let's talk about checklists before we dive into the tool. So these are my checklists before I start a fly-through. And know that there are many ways to create a fly-through. And this is how I find most efficient. So again, I'm going to teach you the one-on-one basics and also how to be efficient with this tool, which makes this class extra special, I believe. So you want to do a save as. For us, we have multiple designers working on one drawing. And we usually have a lead designer that would start the drawing and populate the drawing. And then next thing we'll do is to have another designer work on rendering in a VR, and then the other designer, which is me, that would do the fly-through. So we want to do a save as the original drawing. Why? Because to avoid confusion, accidental object moves, unwanted duplicated objects may happen. So it's important to communicate with your team member. If your lead designer said, hey, we're going to revise this workstation, just so you know, that way you can reflect that in your fly-through too. It's important. Be selective. Emphasize key areas. What are the key areas? The key areas are the areas that are highlighted in the bid. So you want to delete areas that are not needed in the fly-throughs, and your system will run faster and it will save you more time. So, for example, if you have 5 floors of the same typical, pick one floor. Pick an area where you have your key areas, for example, your workstations, your private offices, your boardroom, your ancillary spaces, right? And then delete the rest, because at this time you have done a save as. Then you want to decorate it. So you accessorize the space. I like to use blocks in SketchUp. So you want to include monitors, keyboards, books, plans, anything to decorate the space. People are optional, so I learned from design school that humans are more for scale, right? I personally don't use humans, people. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but if you're gonna use people, I'd say don't make them an emphasis and don't put them in the background where no one will notice them, just somewhere in between. And then next thing you wanna do is add architecture. So you want to include your walls, your windows, your doors, your floors, add needed materials, especially if you know what carpet they're going to include or what color walls they include. You want to show that. And if it's conceptual, go good, go wild with it if you want to. Walls to be 10 to 15 feet high. I recommend this, and I'll show you why later. Ceiling is optional. I don't use ceiling. With ceiling, the space will need lighting, and this can be tricky. So this comes to the whole efficiency part. If I'm going to spend 2 hours on adjusting lighting, and this is due on the same day, I am not doing ceiling, right? So let's dive in to once you click on Movie Studios. There are 2 types of settings for camera setup. The question is when to use them. This is how I would use them. A camera path, to me, will be a drone. That's what I like to use it for. Everyone knows what the drone is? Yeah? No? Yeah? Okay. Stationary camera, I'm sure everyone has seen HDTV, the before and after. That's where I like to use stationary camera, the before and after, and I pan through the space. Additional tools for the camera path to elaborate emphasis. There's the change target, change elevation, change speed, change field of view. I personally don't use this tool because it's almost the same thing as the ceiling and lighting, where if I'm gonna be spending hours on adjusting this, and you would notice, and I'll do a demonstration on this, because it's almost where you gotta have to play with it, spend that extra time. Just know that you're gonna have to spend extra time making this tool not nauseous. It's tricky. It does do this huge speed throughout, but here I'll demonstrate it. So I decided to use the exact same floor plan as what I submitted last year. So to give a better understanding, here we go. So the camera path with the path editing tools can only work for the camera path, not the stationary camera. So when you click on camera path, you want to first click on the point where you want to start and click where it ends. So it automatically pops this window up. It tells me this path is 8 seconds. You can also find that by hovering over your path, and it'll tell you 8 seconds. So let's just say I want to change the target, basically not, going facing forward. And let's say I want to highlight this area right here. This is a little preview. That is how fast it would turn. So you gotta have to adjust that if you want to play with this tool. Now, I like to keep it under single select. And now I want to show you change of elevation. This works better if you start high or, let's say 10 feet, right? So camera is 6 feet, 8 inches, that's fine. Go back to that same path. Drops, goes back up. Then you want to change your speed. You can do this too if you like. Let's say I do, I don't know, this fast. 1 second, so it's going extra fast. There you go, that's it. And lastly, change field of view. Let's put this back to 0.8. It's like that one, zoom in and zoom out. Personally, I don't use this path. If you're a beginner, stay with this too. You'll be okay. I'm not a beginner, and I stayed with this too, and I'm okay. You can do a lot more with this too, and not necessarily needing this tool. And of course, lastly, you have Movie Editor, which is pretty much this. Any questions so far? Everyone okay? So let's dive in. So a good tip is that once you have your camera path or your stationary camera, all settings all set up, save the path as a favorite, because there will be times when you need to go out on vacation or you have to do a sick day, and then your coworker needs to do a fly-through. You can always share this favorite. It also will save you time in any future fly-throughs. For me, I save these two favorite, which is one, a camera path and a stationary camera. Every time I'm asked to do a fly-through, I'll bring these favorites in, put them where I need it to be, and I let it render. The only thing is I would have to adjust a little bit here and there, but saves me so much time. So this is a camera path that I would usually use, and it's like a drone. You're welcome to write down the exact settings that I used. The only time I would tweak it a little bit for every space that or projects, because it's different, But for the most part, it is around that setting. Notice that it's just one straight line, because I like to keep it simple, and really it does the trick. What the goal is to show the overall space. And oops, I went too quickly. Hold on. So this is what I call a drone. And I don't use ceiling, but I make sure I angle my camera in a way that, the ceiling is, no ceiling is not that obvious. Stationary camera. So keep in mind, for me, a walkthrough is more like someone walking through the space. You have the average person's eye level, you're walking through the space, you're going through doors, you're looking through every room. That to me is a walkthrough. For me, a fly-through is more like drone-like, where it's flying through the space. So one thing about a walkthrough to me is that it does emphasize a lot more of the architectural of the space. So keep in mind that we're the ones that are emphasizing and selling the furniture, so we want to emphasize the furniture a lot more than the architectural part. You want to also make sure you want to keep it nice and slow, because when it's nice and slow, not too slow, slow enough where your clients are able to view the details. So these, for stationary camera, I like to use it for emphasizing our key areas in the bid, right? And this is, again, same settings that we use. So I actually showed this to a friend of mine who is not in this industry. She doesn't work for this industry, just a nice friend of mine. And I showed her the video, and she was like, you know what, I like your movie the best. And I was like, why? Because I noticed there are dual monitors, and I need that in my life. So I thought that was really good feedback because she notices the details of it, right? So let's talk more about camera settings. Really, the only way to master this tool is to play with it. And to maximize it is to play with it. I don't have a lot of time to play. These are all mostly overtime. Janine knows. So camera elevation is basically you get to set the height of the camera. The pitch, you set the camera's angle. That's really just up or down, not left or right. Field of view, set wider or narrow view. And what that is really, if you take a photo with your iPhone, your smartphone, it's usually set on wide view, right? And if you want to narrow, you kind of have to go closer or you zoom closer, really. That's how it works. The speed is basically you get to set the timing of the clip or the scene. Naming, you can customize by naming each path. I don't. I have that set where I know what path should be for, and if you have multiple of them, you're welcome to name them. Reverse direction, and that's really for stationary camera only. So instead of left to right, it's going right to left. So let's go here. So this is when you have placed your path and your panning tools all around your spaces, the places where you want to highlight. I like to keep this where it's a good tip, where the shorter the path, shorter the render. It allows more room for adjustment when editing. Longer the path, longer the render. So I like to keep my path around 8 seconds, have each scene or space a separate path. What do you mean by that? Let's say the path of 8 seconds is my overall path, and then my pan of 5 seconds is my workstation. My pan of other 5 seconds, my other panning of 5 seconds is my private office. And then the other will be my boardroom, my ancillary space. Why I like to do that is because the tendency of us revising, re-rendering is highly likely. And if I need to re-render any of this, I can select them, specifically which, basically just the workstation. If I need to re-render workstation, I'm only selecting the workstation. So let me show you an example. This is all the paths that I have. It tells me 8 seconds, 5 seconds, 8 seconds. Let's say, you know what, I want to show maybe the break room first. You could also click and drag show first. And let's say, you know what, I want to just render my front desk. You can uncheck, and it will render just this one. If you check all of them and render them, it will render them as one single movie, one single video, right? So it really depends on how you want to do this. I don't mind either, because in the end of the day, I'm using another external source to edit this tool, this movie. So once you're done that, you can always preview it by selecting the first scene. And if you want to preview the whole thing, you can always press play, and it will go through each and every one of them. When I'm working on this, I'm usually clicking on each scene and then pressing play and see how it moves. Then, of course, we have light presets. I like to keep mine simple. Why? Because I noticed the simple is the fastest rendering time, and lighting is consistent throughout. I'm not against the rest of the settings or the presets, really. Just keep in mind the extra time that you would have to put in if you were to do natural lighting, that you're gonna have to mess with this light settings, right? Again, simple keeps the lighting consistent throughout. Fade in, fade out is really a really nice touch, I would say, for introduction and ending. Not necessarily throughout your scenes, like transitional scenes. That's more like something where I don't think it needs to be, added in. I honestly sometimes only use this. I don't always use it. And then it'll tell you where you want to save your location and your disk space. Any questions so far? Everyone good? Following? All right. Love it. So, when it comes to previewing your path, right, your entire video, I like to render it in a medium quality before exporting to a full HD. That way it allows time for adjustments. This is when I'm literally constantly reviewing it over and over again, and I don't want to spend a whole day letting it render and then realizing, oh, I have to add this, I have to add a plant, I have to add a chair there, oh, why are my furniture floating? I have to fix all that. So you want to make sure you want to do a medium quality first because it will render way faster than a full HD. And then, of course, because we're constantly working on this all day, so it's always good to have a fresh pair of eyes to look at the video and then have them give you feedback. Movies should tell a story. And what I mean by that is, a good way to put it, it's like you can always start where the entrance is, and then when the entrance shows a little bit of the workstation, you can, highlight where the workstations are, and then followed by private offices, so and so. If it makes anyone nauseous, reevaluate your path. It's like a life advice. Kind of. Oh, gosh. All right, let me show you. You're welcome. If anyone makes you nauseous, reevaluate them. So this is where your movie preset settings are. And that's where you want to do your medium. I don't do small, that's too tiny. Can't really tell what's going on. Medium gives me a good amount of size to look through, and it'll render fast enough. So this gets better. Once everything is finalized, so you have set your path, and then you have your movie settings all set up. It's time to render. This is the final, right? You hope, of course. It's not really always the final, but this is the final, right? There are two full HD 1920 by 1080 high quality, and there's the other one without the high quality. So I use the exact same drawing that I show, and this is approximately how long it renders. The estimated time for a high quality is 10 hours, about 10 hours. The estimated time for a non-high quality is 5 hours. That's half. Basically, it's half of whatever the high quality is. So I discovered this when I was, hit with high pressure and something with, we need this right now. What I noticed is you cannot tell the difference between the two. Maybe the file size, but you cannot tell the difference. Both are basically full HD, same size, 1920 by 1080. If you are in that area where, I have time, I can, accessorize, make it pretty, get my drawings done, and then render it for a whole night, which is like, I got 10 hours, basically, you're saying. And then you go to bed, let it render, you wake up in the morning and you realize something crashed, right? This is why the full HD is there. So I would say, I have done both, and I have presented both. I've been told my creative director, did you notice anything? Did you notice anything? She was like, no, I don't. Exactly. This is why the full HD will come in handy. If you're doing a same-day render, full HD will come in handy, right? If you have extra time, you can do the whole risky 10 hours if you want to. But just keep in mind, how likely are we re-rendering our finals? Highly likely, right? If re-rendering is needed, you can render the revised path by selecting in clip collection. It saves you time. So what I mean by that, this part right here. Uncheck what you don't need to render, and then only render one of this. It will come out of its separate movie, right? Separate MP4 file. But I'll show you later on what I use to edit these tools. So, next slide. Finishing touches. There are multiple softwares out there that supports editing your movie. I personally like to use Spark Adobe. Why I like to use it? It is not a software where you need to download. It's all online. What you need to do is to create an account. And I like it because you can personalize it with your logo colors. It does come in with extra costs, and it's simplified edit tools. How simplified? It's simplified for people like us who are not animators, who are not movie editors. It includes over 20 work-appropriate songs. There's a point where you want to add music to it, and then you're looking through your iTunes, and you're making sure none of that will surprise the client with some rap words that you don't want to spend that time. So they include all of these. And then when you want to send it to a client, there's various ways. There's a web link that you can send it to them. It's compatible for both smartphone, computer, and it saves as an MP4 file. So MP4 file is for movies, videos, right? For example, a simple way to put it is when you take a photo with your phone, right, your smartphone, it's default to a JPEG file. So with movies, it's default to an MP4 file. It renders in seconds, and I promise you that as long as your Wi-Fi is fast, it does renders in seconds. So let me demonstrate this. So let's say you create an account, and you want to add your logo in here so that it could take all your logo colors in it. So once you add it in, it automatically takes your logo colors and it spits out a bunch of marketing templates that you can use. What I like to use it for would be for videos, fly-throughs. You create your project, and then you can add it. It gives you a really quick tutorial on how it all works out. Over here is where I want to add a scene. You can add in videos, which basically are your MP4 file once you export them. You can add a text as an introduction, a photo if you need to, an icon. Icon would be this, right? And let's say if you don't want this, you click on the 3 dots and delete it. Just delete slide. This is where I'll put all the videos in here. I like to separate them by scene, but then it's really up to you. For me, it's because of how it transitions to the next scene. And then let's say I could edit this tool. I could zoom in if I wanted to, zoom out if I need to. I could trim it, and this is like trim, make it shorter, longer, however you want to crop this. You want to put a volume in there, you can. Here are the layouts. You can do this as well and add text, add caption if you like, add title if you need to. The themes were spit out this way, where this is, there's various options you can choose from with your logo colors, and then of course here, those are other options that you can use them, but it's not with your logo colors. You can resize them. So this is for your computer, for the widescreen, so for your big, large TV, wherever you are presenting. And then square would be for your, smartphone. Music. This is what they show. You can preview it. Pick from the 20, right? All professional. When you're done, oh, I forgot to add. You could also put in, basically your logo and then a website. Nice professional touch. You can preview the entire video if you like. You can share them with a web link or download them, and it'll download straight to your laptop. Any questions so far? No? All right. So once that is done, this is how it should look like. So really the challenge when I was doing this for CET was to keep it at 30 seconds. 30 seconds is kind of hard because there are multiple areas that we want to show. I would say usually we would keep it around a minute or almost 2 minutes, depending on how large the space is. After 2 minutes, it's kind of too long, I would say. So sources, just know that there's also more sources that you can find to help you or refresh you with the tool. So there's configura.com/CET/support/video. I'm not sure if there are tutorials for movie editing, but they definitely go on very detailed on each tool. And really, that's really all I have. So, any questions? No? Awesome.